every city in every country in the world has people investing in real estate, period. Whether you're a commercial investor, residential investor, whether you're a builder, you own apartments, you own plazas, there's real estate everywhere that people live. That's just a matter of fact. And there's people investing in that real estate. So everybody has a different mandate. I might get like a double-digit return on my cash flow in Florida, where I'm getting negative return in Toronto, but the overall appreciation in Florida, if I buy for $200,000 this year, it'll be worth, $220,000 10 years from now. Whereas in Toronto, I bought a property for $200,000 15 years ago-ish, and it's worth $1 million now. So it cost me money every month to carry it for the last 15 years, but it's got me a 400% return on appreciation. So it's not specific to, should I invest in Canada? Should I invest in, a landlord-friendly state? I'm fearful of this, I'm fearful of that. I want to give you a different outlook on it. There's 4 keys to greatness, and this will go across any platform, whether you want to be a salesperson, investor, if you want to grow a real estate team, it will go across anything.
You are listening to the #1 real estate podcast in the world. We talk with real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, stories, help you win in your local market today. My name is Cody from Sheridan Street. I'm joined by Vikram Deol of the Real Estate Sales Academy. Vikram Deol, you're back in Bakersfield. You're headed back to Medellin, Colombia in a little while. You're going to be back. What's good in your world? What was like one of the most exciting things that happened for you this week? I know that we were at a conference this week, Harcourt Auction, speaking, but what was the highlight?
Keynote speaking at Harcourt's, and it was a small, intimate group of their top producers, top franchise owners. So I think the room had about 75, maybe 100 people in it. And after the talk, a lot of people came up and they're like, man, you gave us actual real life stuff that they can use. Like, they love the game plan frame. They love the tactical aspects of not sounding like a salesperson, by modulating your tonality, by modulating your pace of conversation, and actually the live examples. Me, I bring a lot of energy to the table when we're doing things, and a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, like, the number one challenge that agents have, and I'm a firm believer of it, is that they don't know how to open a conversation. Yeah, it's a number one conversation. It's the number one challenge that I've been in 7 industries in my life. And if more people learn to just slow down, right? Everybody's trying to go from A to Z, but they don't want to go through A, B, C. And so if we just slow down and help the person building block by building block, step by step, to realize what is actually going on. And instead of getting through a prospecting call, it's just a discovery call with a human. So it was really cool to have like a bunch of the people come up afterwards. We've already brought on a couple of new clients from the event. So overall, it was like a really solid week. And I got to do a couple of really cool, like, different ozone, oxygen IVs at my dad's office. So I feel like Superman right now. Yeah, no big deal, dude. No big deal. What about you, bro?
Yeah, man. Recovering from that red eye, recovering from the
you were in and out of the country in like 2 days, and it's a 17-hour flight each way.
I know. Flew in Monday morning, flew out Wednesday night, and it's just super fast. It's nice to be back home and just like kind of situated. But amazing event. Huge shout out to Ben Brady for having us. He's such a cool dude, and they're doing really cool things with auctions, and I know that they're going into a bunch of markets this year. So really, really cool dude. Tons of energy with the franchise there and what they're up to. And it's always cool to kind of see different perspectives and, different brokerages doing different things. And, some things working for some people, some things not working for other people. But like, it's just a cool crowd, man. Really enjoyed, the opportunity to get to know everyone there. And, yeah, man, you're back here. We're, building up the sales team, like I chatted with you about, where it's like, we're going really hard on recruiting right now. We're starting to recruit ISAs in Canada and the US. Right. So, that's going to be like kind of a big push play that I'm going to have probably in Q2, is to kind of build out a Canada US division for ISAs. Like right now we have the LATAM team, we have the Latin American team, but, something that I've been chatting with like my director of operations is like potentially, building out more of a Canadian team. of ISAs that I think
and they love it because they get paid a 30% increase over the U.S. people, so they're excited about
they're
working for our companies.
They're pumped. So, yeah, building out an ISA team in Canada is kind of been my really big focus in my plan, and that's something that we're kind of rolling out. But we have a guest today, Mr. Stephen Young, out of Toronto, Canada. Kind of my old stomping ground in regards to we're gonna drop a bunch of A's on this podcast, and I'm a Canadian myself. You're a Canadian.
Please please apologize.
Yeah,
we'll just apologize in advance.
We'll say sorry. We'll say sorry a couple times on this podcast. But Stephen, you work with a ton of real estate agents, ton of real estate investors, extensive background in helping real estate agents even take a look at what they could do in regards to investing. And you said you wrote in the form, and I was kind of doing some background research. It was the first time we actually met prior to the green room about real estate investing being one of the only exit strategies for real estate and real estate agents. And I'm excited to chat about that, about tactics and tips that you've kind of learned along the way. But before we get to that, can you give us kind of the 60-second Cliff Notes version of who you are, what you're up to, and kind of what some of your passions are in real estate, and then we'll kind of hop into the show today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on the show today. My name's Stephen Young, as you've already introduced me. I've been in real estate the last 19 years. I started in real estate, not necessarily because I wanted to, but a little bit forced into it. I had aspirations to be a professional football player, which they came to fruition. Unfortunately, if you look up Flash of the Pan in the dictionary, there's my football career, because it was only a couple seasons, but it was more seasons than most people who strive to be in football, and I absolutely loved it. One of my co-football players in Winnipeg, when I was playing, he said he actually recommended I get into real estate in the off seasons because it's a great way to have a flexible schedule. The money's pretty good, and then you can just leave and pick up and leave to play football in any city you want, and it really didn't matter. So I thought it was a great idea. I've always been interested in real estate. I was 26 years old, and my career ended, not because I wanted to, just because that's the business. And so I was kind of forced into real estate, not knowing anything, didn't know anybody, had no background in it, no family members. I didn't have a rich uncle who wanted to show me the ways of real estate. So I was just sort of thrown into with the wolves, and I started with the company. The first day was, opened a phone book in front of me and said, start calling people. And I was like, what am I going to say? And they said, you'll figure it out. And I didn't figure it out after a week. I still couldn't.
That's the same way that training is now. It's here's a list of, here's a CRM. Here's a phone, and start calling. Nothing's changed in 40 years, 30 years.
In 20 years. Well, it has changed for the people who figured it out. But unfortunately, the vast majority of brokers out there and trainers, that's still the mandate. Just, dial for
just
dollars.
Call people.
But just call people, which it sort of works, but there's much better ways, more efficient ways to be a successful real estate agent, especially in 2024. So that was kind of my first interlude. And then after I quit there, I said, this isn't for me. Joined another brokerage, and instead of being on the phone, they said, hey, let's go door knocking was their training method, and which I never did before. And again, didn't know what to say. So I just knocked on people's doors, and, at 40-degree plus humidity weather in summers here in Toronto. And I was a big guy at the time. I'm still big, just not as big as, pro football players, almost 300 pounds. So me walking around on a hot, humid day through Mississauga and Brampton, door knocking, I was not presentable. Let's put it this way. Okay. It was quite sweaty. People were like, what are you doing on my doorstep? And I was scaring most people, and I was just trying to sell their homes, not knowing what to do. So after 2 weeks of doing that, it just didn't work out for me there. So I was like, this isn't for me either. And then I found a third brokerage. Keep in mind, this is still within the first month of real estate. Okay. So
man, bro, you get around.
Hey, I was committed to success. I'm telling you, I was so pissed off about losing my dream job. I was like, this has to work, or I don't have plan B. So I was already out to my plan B technically. So this is it. It had to work for me. So I was committed. So I worked 7 days a week. My first year in real estate, made a whopping $39,000, I think it was. And the only day I took off that year was Christmas Day, but I worked every other day, including New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. I did every weekend open house. I did everything I possibly could under the sun. And it just wasn't working. My wheels were just spinning. I was working harder than anybody in the office. I was always a hard worker. So I wasn't afraid to work hard. I'm still working hard. I just don't work as much as I used to. But I'm making a lot more money than I used to, which is I just figured out how to do it properly and scale and use my time better. But when it came down to it, I learned a lot in that first year. I was looking to learn. It's just because I did so many things. I just looked back and said, look, that worked, that didn't work. Let's try this, let's tweak this here. But I found a mentor, and he actually told me a few things to do. And one of his big things was, there's only 3 ways you can grow a real estate business. It's either through more people, more transactions, or just this repetition, doing more and more. So I just I've been doing a lot of more of the things, open houses, and that's not working. He said, no, you have to focus on clients. I said, well, most clients I work with, they want to buy a home and then not sell it again for 20 or 30 years. And that's similar to the mandate that is now in Toronto. Like, most people don't buy multiple properties, and they certainly don't, buy and sell every single year to move. Moving's difficult, so I understand that. And they just don't want to do that, pick up their kid, pick up the roots. So that wasn't the strategy for me. So he told me to focus on investing and investors. One, mainly because when I first got into real estate, the first thing I did was I took whatever scraps of money I saved up in the CFL. I bought an investment property just so I can live in something in Toronto while I was working. And so that property, after that 1 year, I was working 7 days. We had appreciated by $150,000, which is 3 times what I had earned as a realtor working basically 24/7. And I was like, well, what am I doing here? I'm working so hard, making 39, and I did absolutely nothing and made 150,000 in my sleep practically. So I said, well, there's something to this. So as I sort of went down the rabbit hole of investing in real estate, I realized there's a lot more people out there who prefer that as opposed to me knocking on their door saying you want to sell your home or you want to buy another property to live in. That wasn't the mandate. What I realized though is the more I learned about investing in real estate, the more I realized, one, real estate agents don't buy real estate to invest in themselves. It's probably the only business in the world I know of where you can buy something sell something that you don't own yourself. Can you imagine going to a stockbroker's office and saying, hey, here's $100,000 cash. It's my life savings. I need you to invest in the stock market. It's got to be protected. It's my nest egg. What are you going to do for me? And they give you this long speech of what they're going to do for you. And your final question is, what do you invest in? They say, oh, I don't invest in the stock market. I can't afford to invest in the stock market. I've never touched the thing. You would run as fast as you possibly could. But in real estate, it's not like that. There's a lot of people who come to me and say, let me back up. There's a lot of agents who I coach who want to work with investors, but they don't invest in real estate themselves. And the problem is that person who is looking for their advice or their expertise in investing, they're not going to get it because that person who's selling them the product just don't have that intimate knowledge of real estate investing. And there is a big difference between being an owner and being someone on the sidelines reading a book or thinking they know something about real estate.
Well, let's jump into it. So I think the first question is, why don't agents invest in real estate? Because I made a lot of money in real estate and I didn't invest, and I knew the richest investors in the world and I didn't follow their footsteps, even though I was making more money than 99% of the world. And it was always, for me, it was always like, I'll get the next deal. I'll get the next deal. I'll get the next deal. Right. We're also investing heavily back into our team every month. So that was like, if I take money out of my business and I put it into, we actually had a successful team, not like a lot of the teams out there that are struggling. We had systems and processes and training and all that good stuff. But what is the mindset of like an investor that's doing, let's say 100, 150 grand. So they make enough money. They have a spouse that's working. So they make enough money that they could invest into real estate. They talk about it. What do you feel like is holding them back from actually taking action on it?
Well, congratulations on your success, Vikram. I didn't realize how successful you were, but congratulations. But you are not the majority of real estate agents. The vast majority, well over 90% of real estate agents, especially here in Toronto, make less than one transaction per year. Right. You say, what if you're making 150,000? Again, that is not the majority of real estate agents out there. So the number one pushback of why I think they should be investing in real estate, they just don't have the money. And the number two one, if you do have the money, you don't have the knowledge. And what it gets down to is like, well, I'm in real estate, I must have the knowledge. You really don't have the intimate knowledge of real estate investing. So you really have to be involved with it to understand real estate investing from a point where you're successful at it. Anybody can go and buy a piece of real estate and call themselves an investor, but that investment isn't returning an actual investment return to you, or you're not, you're doing a flip or you do it wrong, you can lose money. You don't necessarily know what you're doing. So there is knowledge to be gained and learned in real estate investing. You can either do it the hard way, like I did, and trial and error. I'm, losing my shirt on some of these investments. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a mentor, nobody to hold my hand. So I was just doing it because I wanted to do it. But at the end of the day, I did the hard way, but I learned. That was the whole importance of it. And what it allowed me to do was I could speak to clients better. I could speak to anybody really about real estate investing now. It didn't have to be someone who looking specifically for real estate investing. But more importantly, I had an information base that my competitors didn't have because they didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have what I went through. So that hard thing that I did, that trial and error phase of real estate investing, has served me incredibly well. I don't recommend it to everybody though. Okay, learn from people's mistakes, learn from my mistakes, and just avoid them. You don't need to learn that lesson to be a successful real estate investor.
So I'm curious because you're in Canada, you're in Toronto, done extensive research on the Canadian market. Just for clarity's sake, for people that are listening to this that are from Canada as well, are you investing in Canadian property or are you investing down south in like kind of like a more, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 market? Or are you investing like where you live?
So the bulk of my portfolio, over 70% of my portfolio is in Toronto, but we have properties coast to coast in Canada and we have properties down south in Florida. We don't go outside of Florida mainly because I just don't know it. I don't travel there. I travel to Florida quite a bit. And when I do go down there, I look for investment properties. We sell investment properties to clients down there as well. The difference between Florida or U.S., I can't lump all of U.S. in the same umbrella, but because I only know Florida intimately. But Florida, you get amazing cash flow. You can buy properties for $200,000 that rent for $1,600 a month, okay? And your mortgage rates are lower than they are here in Canada. Your tax incentives are great. You have depreciation, which we don't really have in Canada. You have these, 1031
tax
exchanges
friendly,
where you can flip properties and don't pay tax on. You actually grow your portfolio much faster that way. So there's way more benefits to investing in real estate.
Florida is one of the states that's still investment friendly, like California, Seattle, Oregon, Washington. Those states have really adverse laws for investors.
That's why I was asking the question around if you're talking to a Canadian investor, maybe you can talk to the Canadian crowd and talk to the US crowd of people that want to do, because from what I understand, from the investment space, because I was once a part of the RAIN in Canada, Real Estate Investment Network, with JP, and how do you get, I guess, across the fear of investing locally in Canada when the labor tenant laws are not even remotely what they are in Florida? It's a lot easier to get a really crappy tenant out of a Florida property than it would be out of an Ontario property. So how do you kind of talk to a real estate agent that wants to invest into property? Are you recommending that they invest locally in Canada or going down south? What's your, I'll be curious.
I think I got most of that question. So it's a fear question, yes?
Yeah.
How do you overcome fear? How do you get how do you get out of a bad investment? The question is, do your homework beforehand. Okay. So yes, the US is landlord friendly, but so is Alberta and so is Quebec, and there's different provinces in Canada that are landlord friendly. So you can focus your portfolio on those if that's truly your mandate or your destination or your goal. But at the end of the day, every city in every country in the world has people investing in real estate, period. Whether you are, a commercial investor, residential investor, whether you're a builder, you own apartments, you own plazas, there's real estate everywhere that people live. That's just a matter of fact. And there's people investing in that real estate. So everybody has a different mandate. I might get a double-digit return on my cash flow in Florida where I'm getting negative return in Toronto, but the overall appreciation in Florida, if I buy for $200,000 this year, it'll be worth, $220,000 10 years from now. Whereas in Toronto, I bought a property for $200,000 15 years ago-ish, and it's worth $1 million now. So it cost me money every month to carry it for the last 15 years, but it's got me a 400% return on appreciation. So it's not specific to, should I invest in Canada? Should I invest in, a landlord-friendly state? I'm fearful of this. I'm fearful of that. Biggest problem, I think, is I want to give you a different outlook on it. And my mentor told me there's 4 keys to greatness. And this will go across any platform, whether you want to be a salesperson, investor, if you want to grow a real estate team, you guys want the #1 podcast in the world, no matter what it is, these 4 things will go across anything. And it'll actually get around the fear things of what most people get stopped by. And the 4 keys to greatness are, number one is you have to have a plan of where you want to go. And not just like oh yeah, this is what I want in my head. You have to have a written plan, not a business plan. You don't need to go get an MBA and do business proposal for a bank that's 1,000 pages long. Well, you need a specific number and a specific destination. Earl Nightingale used to say, if you had a boat trying to get out of a harbor with no rudder on it and just sort of like tried to get out, it would never get out. It would just be adrift in the lake and trying to get pushed around by the wind and have no destination point. But if you gave the same ship a specific destination with a steering wheel and a rudder and actually worked, you would get there 99.9 out of the times, okay? So you have to have that specific destination. So to get over the fear, most people have no clue what they want in real estate, whether it's sales or investing or life in general. So if you're looking to make $100,000 a year, let's say in real estate, well, you can do that in Toronto by flipping half of a property, okay? So my average flip in Toronto is just over $200,000 per property, and we do that every month. 4 times a month is what our average is. So it's a very quick goal to get and attain if that's what you want. But not a lot of people want to be a builder or renovator or flipper.
Yeah.
And they say, look, I want $100,000 a year, but I want to sell $1 million properties. Great. Well, here's the plan you need to have if you know where you're going. So the number one key is you have to know where you're going. So number 2 is once you have that goal in mind, you have to have a specific plan. And how you get that plan is you look at other people who've done it before you. So if you guys want to have the biggest podcast in the world, which I think you already claim to have, which probably is, which I'm grateful to be on, then you just have to say, look, we're pushing the boundaries. We are the ones pushing this. So if you're not as big as Joe Rogan, then what's Joe Rogan doing on his podcast? So you want to emulate what other people are doing who are either ahead of you, or you don't want to emulate the same success. And the third thing is
model the success of others.
Model the success of others is the second key to greatness. And number 3 is once you've had the plan in place, the goal and the destination, and you've modeled the success of others and say, I'm going to follow this plan that they are doing. The third thing is overcoming your personal, how do I describe it without saying too bad, but your personal deficiencies. Basically, when you're down on yourself, you have to overcome that. You have to be aware and self-confident and self-aware, but not too egotistical. To say, yes, I can overcome the no's. I can overcome the people, saying I can't do this. And you got to overcome that fear. And that's really what stops a lot of people. I could say to a realtor, look, I'm going to show you how to make $1 million this year and come GCI. Okay. And say, great. And I say, here's the plan. I'm like, great. Okay. All you got to do is pick up the phone. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. Well, listen, it's simple. It's a simple plan. It's worked for long before I've been in this business, but it's just overcoming this fear of what you're not capable of doing. But everybody's capable of doing everything you want to do. It just, some things are holding you back, which I understand, which leads me to the 4th key to greatness, which is having a mentor or a coach. And I don't mean your aunt or your uncle, your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister, not someone who's personally connected to you, but someone who's willing to tell you the truth. Someone who's willing to say, look, this is what you need to do. Here's your strengths. Here's your weaknesses. This is what you need to work on. If you're going for this $1 million plan and you have to do this plan, you have to do these phone calls or meet these people, and you're going off track, you need someone there to say, hey, instead of going out this Saturday or Sunday and partying, why don't you go and start doing your business plan and keep you committed to this plan? And those are the 4 keys to greatness, whether you're a realtor, investor, podcaster, you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is, those 4 keys to greatness overcome all fears.
I want to switch gears a little bit because when it comes to realtors, one of the challenges that they have is, I know a lot of agents that say, I want to work with investors, but like you were saying earlier, they don't understand the mindset of an investor, right? Yeah. So they're not going to the real estate clubs. They're not going to the investment clubs. They're not going out to the meetups where investors hang out. A lot of them feel like they should know more than they do, and they're super intimidated. And so they don't want to go because it's like an ego trip because somebody knows more, so they feel less than. What do you say to your agents that you're working with that don't have a list of investors that they're currently working with? Because if you don't have investors, you don't know if you don't know the language, you don't know what to talk about. So what's the chicken? What's the egg per se when you're talking with agents on how to get in the investment world just for education?
So it goes back to the 4 keys. The 3rd key is overcoming that fear of I don't know this, I better not speak to somebody. So I want to learn everything first before I start doing it. My mentor used to say you have to jump and grow wings on the way down before you hit the ground. right? And that's exactly what you have to do. You just have to jump in and do it. And what I mean by that, and I'll give you a tactical thing that your realtor listeners can do every single day that will help them grow quickly. In terms of real estate investing, I can show you how to be a top-notch real estate investor with 90% of the lingo within like 1 hour. It doesn't take long to, like real estate investing isn't very complicated. I find the stock market incredibly complicated, which is why I don't touch it. I don't recommend it for most people. You're competing against rig robots now and AI, and people work 24 hours a day on this stuff. It's like, it's so complicated and so intertwined and geometrically growing. And it's like, you can't figure it out. Whereas real estate, it really hasn't changed much, like ever since the dawn of time. It's either going to be a builder or you're going to be a cash flow investor. And that's kind of the only two. Like there's some nuances in niche markets, but really that's really boils down to either you're going to find somebody who wants to renovate and flip a property and grow some money quickly, or you're going to find somebody who wants to just put some money down and be a landlord and grow that long term. That's really the only two things you know. So in the last 30 seconds, I just showed your audience 80% of what you need to be a real estate investor, a real estate investor agent specific. Number two is they need to get involved with it themselves to really understand it this way. If you went to the gym and your goal for 2024 was to get a six-pack, okay? You guys probably look like you're already in shape. You already have six packs, so this won't relate to you. Yeah. But let's say realtor listeners are saying, hey, look, I want to be in shape. I want to have a six-pack, and I'm going to hire a trainer because Steve said the fourth key to greatness is having a coach. So I'm going to get a coach, and I'm going to have a plan, and I'm going to stick to the diet and the whole 9 yards, overcoming this fear. And then you show up and your trainer is this like fat, overweight guy with no six pack, and you're like,
Bro,
hey,
I don't think you're allowed to say that word on we can't use the word fat because we're gonna get canceled. So
sorry.
Yeah, it's a person with more weight than others.
My apologies. I do get ahead of myself sometimes. I still haven't figured out all the lingo and as it evolves every day. So trainer,
you have to have somebody that's actually in the space doing it, not just a theoretical person.
Let's say your trainer doesn't have a six-pack and will never have a six-pack.
I can get behind that one, Steve.
Okay. The likelihood of that trainer showing you a specific plan or strategy in place to get you your six-pack is highly unlikely. So where am I going with this? Well, if you're a realtor,
you're also not going to believe them.
Estate,
you're also, the other thing is that if you have a person that's telling you to do something, but they don't do it themselves, there's not a ton of buy-in, right? You're going to look at him and be like, all right, so why should I listen to you versus not when you're not willing to do it yourself? Like clearly you don't believe in the system enough that you're doing it.
Well, I agree to some degree there. However, there are people who can certainly get you motivated to a point, and there might be some health issues for trainers who can't get a six-pack who still can get you to a six-pack. So it's not necessarily specific to you have to have one. However, the buy-in is there. So if, when my clients come to me and they see I've got thousands of properties and I've flipped over $2 billion worth of real estate, it's a much easier sale. And the conversation doesn't last too long. They realize I know what I'm talking about. Okay. But I wasn't always there. So when I first started real estate, and the tactical thing I want your agents to take away from this is that everybody's a real estate investor. It doesn't matter who they are. They just don't know it yet. They don't know how to do it. But if they were shown the way how to do it, they would certainly do it because the benefits far outweigh the sort of negative things that come with real estate investing. And that tactical thing is working. If someone has a real estate property, which, the vast majority of any city, of any town in pretty much the world, someone's going to own real estate or multiple real estate. You're going to send them a letter, which is a CMA letter, which CMA stands for comparative market analysis. And I don't want you to do a full-blown CMA unless someone asks you to do it, because they're time-consuming. Each day you can sound anywhere from 50 to 100 in like a farming area and say, look, your home, and do a specific CMA. You should know the area you're working in. And let's say the area homes I work in are around $4 million. They go to between like $4 and $5 million, but they weren't that way 10 years ago. So let's say they were $2.5 million 10 years ago. I could send a letter, 50 letters a day to my neighborhood. There's about 5,000 homes here. So it would take up a large portion of the year to do so. And we do this every single year. Our team does. Everybody picks a specific location that they want to work in. And then they send her a letter, and it's addressed specifically to the person, the homeowner, which you can easily find in any system. And pretty much every jurisdiction we work in, there's an easy system to find who the homeowners are. And you send them a letter and you say, hey, your home you bought it in 2010 is now worth $5 million. You paid $2.5 million for it. I don't know all the intricacies of what you've done over the last decade, but assuming you haven't refinanced the property, you have potentially $2.5 million of equity in your home. If you want to talk to me, here's an investment that we just did. We purchased the property for $735,000. We're going to sell for $1.3 million. We'll walk away about $360,000 in profit. This one's already taken, but we got 10 more just like it that we can't do because we can't do them all ourselves. Would you be interested in something like that? And you put it in the mail and you send it out. And we do thousands of these every single year. And the response is astronomical. The response is astronomical.
Hold up. Let's slow this down a little bit because I want to.
I might be talking too fast, but yeah.
No. I mean, I want to unpack this for people a little bit because this is a very different strategy and I've been around a lot of agents for a lot of years, and this may be the first or second time I've ever heard it. It doesn't ring a bell that I've ever heard it, which if I haven't heard it, chances are most agents haven't heard it. So number one, we are not looking for the $5 million house owner to sell their home, correct?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So we are sending a letter to the homeowner saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, you guys have, right. So we're doing a little bit of homework on them. It looks like you purchased the home back in, 2014, for around $2.3 million. And now the range in your neighborhood is about $4 to $5 million, which means you have a lot of equity in the property. We're now saying, going on the assumption that you haven't refinanced or cashed out any blah, 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 you potentially have a few $1 million in untapped equity. Here's a case study of a property that right? You guys, it's called a case study. What Steven said, it's called a case study. There's a case study of the property that we recently just renovated, flipped, bought, rented, whatever your letter is.
Yep.
If you would be interested in investing alongside of us, here's our information. And these people are calling you guys, and you guys are having inbound calls around people that want to give you money now, possibly.
All day, every day. So we don't have a fund auger we used to, but you can certainly create funds. We've had realtors who created funds, and they do these what we call syndications, where it's a group of people pooling their money and they're getting to larger projects. I just don't need the inbound money anymore, so we just don't do it. There's a lot of sort of legal implications and like Financial Services Commission of Ontario, sort of like.
So you're just helping these people. You're helping these people. You're finding them properties. You're helping them buy the property, and then they do whatever the strategy. So you're helping them create a strategy of rental or a flip with this, like long term or a flip or something like that.
So the hook gets them into call, and then the call comes in, and then we have to determine what they really want to do. Do they really want to be a builder or a flipper or renovator? Do they want to be a cash flow landlord? Do they just want to take some of their equity in their home and make it a mortgage fund on their own? Like there's so many different strategies once you get on the phone that we can't really determine specifically, other than we want to give them a great example. And people love short-term big gains. And that's why we always talk about these short-term big gains. Now there's way more money in mortgage lending, and you're getting tremendous amounts of cash flow, so risk averse. You're getting, anywhere from 12 to 14% annualized return for doing absolutely nothing and very little risk. But most people don't want to that's not their first step in the door. That's not really what most investors, if they've never invested in real estate, I don't recommend that's your first step. But it depends on the strategy that they want. And that goes back to the 4 keys to greatness. What is the goal? What are they going for? And I'm here to help you and show you exactly how to get it. I have so many different ways to do it. I just don't know what you specifically want. And your realtor listeners is no different. If you want to make $1 million a year, there's a million different ways to do that. I just don't know specifically what you want to do, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses. So I got to get you on the phone. So that's what we do with our client base as well. And that's what you could do to pretty much anybody in your neighborhood or any neighborhood you want to work in.
Man,
Steven, I wish we could chat for another hour about, going deeper into this tactic. If a real estate agent is out there and they're like, I want to learn about this strategy a little bit more, or I want to learn about investing in my own business, or maybe we just have a real estate agent that is like, I don't even know where to start. Like, where is the best place that we can send them to you in order to start that conversation?
The best place is go to therealtorworkshop.com. It's sort of our busiest program that we have because it starts with everybody at the beginning. So it's really for anybody listening. And we have obviously advanced programs beyond that, but the best thing to start with, if you're listening to this program or you've heard this one tactic I said, if you never heard it before, then you really need to go to the Realtor Workshop, because we talk about that there, plus 50 other tactics as well. We talk about your goal, how to do it. We give you a plan called the Success Guide, which is really a step-by-step program, how to set a goal, how to set a target, how to build the plan, how to backtrack and build it, what you have to do day in and day out. We're there to mentor you a little bit. Now, it's basically done There's a live component to it, but the vast majority of the program is done by self-education, self-learning. It's totally free. Go and check out therealtorworkshop.com. But at the end of the day, it will get you a goal. It's the big benefit of the program is when you go through. It's a short program. It's not very long. It's a few hours long. It will get you a goal and it'll get you something set in stone so that you can commit to it. It'll get you a plan in place. It'll get you some tactics so that you can implement that plan and move forward. So that's the best thing you can do for listening.
Love
Steven,
it, man. Thank you.
Really appreciate your time today. Really appreciate you giving us that tactic that agents can go and find more investors, have better conversations. So thanks for sharing that course with us as well. I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RH podcast. If you are listening to iTunes or Spotify, leave us a review. Leave us a review if you got any value. We're trying to reach more real estate agents.
Share this with some friends because I guarantee you they haven't heard of this either. Because Cody and I haven't heard of it. I don't think Cody. Have you heard of this before, Cody?
Not that specific. I've heard I have buyer letters. Yeah, but this is really cool.
This was really cool.
Steven, I want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RH podcast. We'll see you soon.